In the second standard, we're picking up with what has happened to the chyme in the stomach as it's passed into the small intestine. So this is Alimentary Canal, Part 2. The standard says I can describe how food is broken down and nutrients are absorbed in the latter portion of the alimentary canal. It includes accessory organs like the pancreas and liver, but primarily the small and large intestine. In the last video, we said that there are two major ways that food is digested. It is mechanically digested as it's either physically broken down into smaller pieces or moved through the system. So we talked about the wave-like muscular contractions of peristalsis that is capable of moving food through the esophagus. We also mentioned chemical digestion. So in the mouth, we had enzymes that broke down carbs, and in the stomach, we had enzymes and stomach acid that were capable of breaking down fats and proteins. So anything where we are destroying bonds and creating simpler molecules for absorption. Last time we talked about food as it traveled through the mouth, the pharynx, which is the back of the throat, the esophagus, and into the stomach. Today we'll pick up there and describe all these twisted tubes of intestines, what's going on here, why there are two sets of intestines, etc. So your new heading today, DIGEST.2 Alimentary Canal, Part 2. So from the stomach, we pass through the pyloric sphincter into the small intestine. And there are three regions of small intestine. And so in order of which food passes through them, first we have the duodenum. So the duodenum is pretty short. It comes right after the stomach, and its primary role is as a link to the pancreas. So your pancreas is a lumpy accessory structure that sits right in your abdominal cavity that is primarily responsible for digestive secretions. It's going to produce these very enzyme-rich substances that are going to continue food breakdown. From there, the thick active region, so most of your small intestine is part of the jejunum, and this is where we're really doing the work of absorbing products of digestion. So you eat in order to get energy-rich molecules, in order to get nutrients and vitamins, and so that absorption is happening in your small intestine, primarily in the jejunum. The last region of your small intestine is known as the ileum, and food is going to pass through there just before it enters the large intestine, so we got to pull any last nutrients we can. Your small intestine is anatomically designed for absorption. It has like tentacles on tentacles. It has these really tiny projections that serve to not only move food through more effectively, but to increase surface area. Every one of these individual little villi and microvilli, which are even smaller ones that you'll see on there, are capable of absorbing food. So here, 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 here. And if you just had a smooth tube, you would have far fewer places for food to enter your bloodstream. And so all of these villi really increase the surface area so that you can get max absorption. Like I said, you're trying to absorb them not just into your general body cavity, but into your blood. So a lot of these villi are wrapped very intimately with blood vessels, with capillaries specifically, that are ready to carry those nutrients to the rest of your body tissues. As I mentioned, you have even smaller villi that you can't see on these villi, and those are called microvilli to, again, further increase that surface area. So after the ileum, we then enter the large intestine. You'll notice it's a lot simpler looking. It's not quite as just bound up. And in fact, it's shorter. It's not named for its length, it's named for its width. So it is wider, but a lot shorter. By this point, we are not absorbing nutrients anymore. We had 20-some feet of small intestine to do that. And so now we're going to prepare our stool. We're going to prepare our waste. Because we don't want to have wet diarrhea all the time, we need to absorb our water back, as much of it as we can, and some electrolytes. And so that's what the large intestine is primarily responsible for. We're going to pull that water out, we're going to create feces, and then we're going to store it until there's an appropriate time to defecate or to release that feces. So the pouch that follows the ileum is called the cecum, and it's going to receive a substance that is still chyme-like. We've pulled the nutrients out of it, but it's still very wet and pasty. So this pouch right here would be the cecum. The cecum is attached to your appendix, a largely vestigial organ that we think could have a role in immunity, but ultimately, more often than not, is a hindrance to people if it gets infected or if it ruptures. But the appendix is attached right here. It's this little worm. From the cecum, we then enter the proper colon, where we'll absorb 90% of the water. Food is going to move up through what is called the ascending colon, over through what is called the transverse colon, and down the descending colon. That makes sense. You'll see a little S shape here at the end. It doesn't just roll right into the rectum or into the anus. That S-shaped portion is called your sigmoid colon. All that's happening throughout these is we're pulling out that water. When feces reaches this point, it is stored in the rectum, so it's stored in this pouch right here, so we're not just defecating all day whenever. It's very unsanitary. And then when it's time to release that feces, the anus has two sphincters. It has internal and external sphincters that can open to release a bowel movement.